Hello, fellow book lovers of the internet. It is Cecil. It is Wednesday, and at long last, it is time to return to a writing vlog. I think the last time we had an update was like 6 months ago, back in May, because I have been struggling between physical and mental health. Obviously, that will make it hard to write, but also I have been doing a lot of like internal thinking as far as book progress goes, so it's been hard to like make an update when every month it would feel like being like, yeah, I'm working on it. I think the last time that we spoke, I had recently finished a short story, a fan fiction, for the first time in over a year, so that was exciting. And since then, I have started working on finishing up another one of my fics that have been open for a while. I am almost done with it. I have like just over a chapter left to write, which is crazy and exciting. And I've been really anxious about posting it because sometimes after it's been a certain amount of time, I'm like, nobody even cares anymore. Everybody's just gonna be like, oh, it took you long enough. Anxiety is a beast. But I think something that's been really exciting is that in the midst of all of that and finally getting myself back into the swing of writing, as well as in the midst of doing my best to create a story for my D&D campaign that I run, to make it make sense outside of my head, and getting that like kind of immediate feedback on what are the things with the way that I describe it that people have questions on, that it's sort of given me guidance on how to make sure that what I'm writing makes sense. And in the midst of all of that, I came to a realization. I have to gut my book like almost completely. The themes, the premise, all of that is very much still the same, right? We're working with the same characters, we're working with the same point of the plot, the morals are the same, like the antagonist is the same, but there's some parts of the structure that I've just realized make no logical or scientific sense. And I could try to keep working with it, but if I keep trying to work with what I have, I'm never going to get anywhere because it's just not very good. It's not up to my current standards. Because when I wrote this for the first time, or when I started writing it, I was 15 years old. I was 15 years old and I was writing something based on a dream that I had. So it just is not, it is simply not the story that I feel as a 23-year-old needs to be told. It's not the same. And I mean, there are some pieces of it that I'm keeping, but a lot of it needs to be gutted. And then when I realized it needed to be gutted, that was very daunting, because that meant that I had to kind of come up with an entirely new story, even though it's not a new story. It's like, it's the same story, just told vastly differently. But that was overwhelming. That was scary. And it made me wonder, like, if I have to scrap almost the entire thing except for the first and last chapter, is it good? Is it actually worth going back to, or should I just pick a different story that I need to be paying attention to? And it was a lot of back and forth as I was trying to decide that. That was not an easy decision to make at all. But I forced myself to actually sit down and think about it, right? I looked at the map that I made and I was like, I don't want to scrap this. I don't want to scrap this world that I've finally started really putting work into creating. I don't want to scrap these characters that I care a lot about. And this story is important to me, even if its structure and its contents change drastically. The soul of the story is what's important to me. And I want to keep that. So, as I'm looking at it and I'm thinking and I'm like, what should I do? What makes sense? What makes sense? What can I change? What can I change? And then it finally just started to like hit me. And what I ended up doing, and what I've been doing for the past few weeks, is I've been just sitting down with a pen and paper and writing down questions that I have for myself. Like, why is the story like this? This part doesn't make sense to me. Why would this character agree to this with absolutely no information? What information should they have access to make it make sense that they're doing what they're doing? And do I know what that information is? And I think looking at it in one piece at a time instead of being like, I need to fix the science of the world, I need to fix the history of the world. I think looking at it slowly but surely has helped a lot. I've looked into basically everything except for my protagonist. I've looked into my deuteragonist and why he's doing what he's doing. I've looked into the side characters, who most of whom did not exist. There were so few characters in the book, and I think that conceptually it could have maybe made sense if it were a different story, but ultimately there needed to be people actually building a community, even if it's a small community, so that there's more influences and there's more ways to, like, it's gonna make for a more interesting story. And so that's what I wanted to start beefing up. And once I started doing that, I was like, okay, so now things are completely different, but also how does this help me actually move the story forward? Like, how does this make things better? And so then I started outlining chapter 2, which is the chapter I keep trying to write and cannot write because I finally got through chapter 1. I love chapter 1. It will be edited, obviously, as time goes on, but I think that chapter 1 is finally the right shape. It's the right shape and the right color. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit, you know? And so every time I tried to think of, like, what do I write for chapter 2, nothing was coming because I was like, I can't make this interesting. It feels awkward. It feels incorrect because I came up with the concept when I was 15. I finally sat down and was like, let's try to outline chapter 2, now keeping in mind all of the circumstances, all of the variables that we've slightly altered or completely removed, etc. And then when I did that, it all just started coming out. It started coming together. It started clicking in my brain, and I was like, I understand why you're acting like this, and I understand why you're acting like this, and I understand that there are external influences now that are also affecting why you're acting like this, and I understand why you're continuing to keep going, even though you're basically being held captive. Like, it makes sense now. It makes sense now, and I like that. I like that moment of clicking and things making sense. And so then I went and I started exploring the motivations of my antagonist. So the premise of the book, like, without plot spoilers, is that a girl gets kidnapped into an alternate universe and is kind of forced to fight on one side of this ongoing war, basically because the antagonist is trying to restructure the world according to his ideals, but the problem is that he kind of sucks. And so in doing this, he's a very, like anyone, he's a flawed individual, but also he kind of has this mindset of, my way is the only correct way, and therefore I will fight this war until it ends in the entire globe, and there's no one left who's going to try and fight me for what I'm doing, and then I'm going to make the world perfect, and it'll be like Utopia, and it'll be great, which, as we all know, never actually goes great, and it's always a little bit creepy. So, and the premise was basically that he was an alien, and his planet was supposed to have been, like, kind of destroyed by war, and so he went to this Earth that was also damn near destroyed by war, and he wanted to fix it. He wanted to help. And the problem is that his version of helping is not very helpful. But then I was thinking about that, and I'm like, why would he continue the fight? Like, wouldn't his priority be, like, stopping the war altogether or something? Or, like, why is he doing what he's doing? Why are people from this world letting him do what he's doing? I started asking myself more questions, like, why would someone from a war-torn world continue tearing a world with war? Like, wouldn't he already know that's not gonna make anything better? Like, just trying to power through the rest of the, like, that's still engaging in war. Like, is that the best method? Can he just not, like, piece that together, or, like, what? But yeah, so I've thought a lot about his motivations now and why he's doing what he's doing, and just starting to get into everybody's motivations has been really helpful, and I think it's going to move the story along a lot better. I'm really excited. I am. There's still a long way to go. I have no idea now how many chapters I want it to be. I think it might have been 30 chapters the first time I wrote it, but who knows? And I guess I'm just gonna have to keep mapping out the story in my head, mapping out the characters in my head, and figuring out, what is driving them, why are they doing what they're doing, and what information do they have access to? What information will the reader have access to? This is the most progress I've made in years, and I'm just really excited about it. Thank you for watching and for listening to me kind of ramble about the way that my story is developing. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you are a writer as well, I hope that everything with your stories, with your projects, whatever it is that you're working on, I hope that you find that momentum starts to get you excited about working on it. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And hey, writers, leave a comment below. Tell me, when do you know that it's time to scrap the concept of a story altogether versus just completely gut it, but stick with the premise and start over with that premise? I want to know what's like your threshold, because obviously mine is, because I don't want to let it go. You can follow me in the links in the description box below. And if you have not done so yet, subscribe. Hopefully we are going to be having many more updates in the months to come.